Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the PHNX Coyotes Podcast. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah here with PD. Craig is somewhere in Italy.
Europe, Swiss Alps today?
But we can only have one Craig on our show at a time, which is why we're very excited to welcome in TSN Director of Scouting, Craig Button. Craig, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, well, hey, always a pleasure to join you. You're right, Leah. There's only room for one Craig. And I hope Craig, if he is in the Swiss Alps, is enjoying his time over there, because it's one of my bucket list things to do in the summertime is to go through, Italy and the Swiss Alps and the Italian Alps and kind of go on a little tour over there.
Wow.
I can only do it in the summer. So if he's done that, I'm going to have to pick his brain on it.
Yeah, Craig, before we get going, we'll talk about where are you physically and are you near any fires? Do we have to worry? Because it's awful up there.
But you don't have to worry. No, you don't have to worry. I'm in Calgary. So we had some, in northern Alberta, there was some forest fires 2.5 weeks ago, but the rain came in and took it away. But those fires now are happening in Quebec, in northern Quebec. And obviously we're seeing, how the wind stream just takes it into areas where there are no fires. And certainly, we look at the eastern seaboard of the United States and, the Yankees game on Tuesday night, and there wasn't clouds, it was smoke. So obviously, it becomes something really impactful with this. And I know firsthand, because we do get it. We don't get it a lot, but when we do get it, the sky, the air quality, it's very noticeable, and you have to be very careful being outdoors.
Yeah, it's been a crazy summer so far with all of that. So glad everything's good in Calgary. We're going to talk to you about the NHL Draft. It's just 3 weeks from today.
Wow.
Obviously, Coyotes fans have a lot of questions with the 6th and 12th pick. So we'll get into some more specifics in a bit. But I just want to know from you, obviously this is the Connor Bedard draft. But is the headline of this draft still, the top 3 or 4 and then everybody else? Or what's the depth situation of this draft?
So, I can say it's a deep draft, but that doesn't really put definition to it. So I need to define what I feel is depth. I mean, Connor Bedard's a generational player in my view. So, that sets it at an already elite level when you have that type of player. But I think it's really deep, and I think it's deep through 20, 22, maybe even 24. Wow. So what's depth? That's top 2 line forwards that can add offense, and what I consider to be top 2 pair defensemen. I would even narrow it down and say top 3 defensemen. So when you go that deep, where you can get top 2 line forwards and top 3 defensemen, 20, 22, 24, whatever you want to cut it off at, that's where I see it. We know there's going to be players that emerge later on down the line that are really good. But at the top end of that draft, which is through 20, I really see really significant quality. A lot of times as you get past 7, 8, 10, you're looking at players, okay, you project at the very least, you go, okay, that'll be a good 3rd line player. That'll be a good number 4 defenseman. When you get top 3 defensemen and top 2 line forwards that deep in a draft, that to me is quality depth. And that's how I see this 2023 draft.
You looked at we just finished up some pretty big tournaments. We had the Memorial Cup just finished. We also had the under 18s. You've had all these competitions are now over. And we looked at your list. Do you have anybody that's just really their stock has risen since January that has been a big surprise? I saw a defenseman that kind of went up a little bit in your rankings. Is there anybody that we should be looking at that made big jumps in your list?
But that defenseman only went up a little bit. It wasn't like he came from 40 to 5. You're talking about Axel Sandin Pellikka. And to me, I've watched Axel now, and I've seen him over 20 times in the last 18 months.
Wow.
Maybe 2 years now. So, but what you're able to do is see the progression in his game. And you're watching him, and he keeps pushing it higher. And that's why, I think so highly of him. And, when I at the U18, and I'm really careful about using certain players as comparable types, not as they, but I'm watching Axel play, and I turned to Brian Mudryk, my broadcast partner, and I said, let me know when he makes a mistake, because I haven't seen one. And that reminded me so much of Sergei Zubov. Wow. Sergei Zubov didn't do it with flash and dash. He didn't do it with a lot of panache. He wasn't eye-catching, but it was incredibly important how he played the game and where he did it in so many different critical areas. And, so, he Tommy Wilander, his Swedish counterpart, I believe probably on the January list, or I had him like 15 or 14. He's in the top 8 now. And to me, those players, the way they play the game, the way they manage the game, that to me translates into the NHL. And certainly you're trying to balance out, this player, watching them over time. Have you missed something? Have you overrated something? Have you underrated another area of their games? But all in all, I don't think anything surprised me. It just becomes, it's kind of like when you do an eye test and they put glasses in front of you and they go, better, worse, better, worse, better,
right.
worse, better, worse. And they're trying to get to, you do the same thing with the draft list, better, worse. And you put a number, like say you put 7 beside a player. Well, you might say, well, I think this guy should be 7. I don't know if I can really argue that the 9th guy on my list shouldn't be 7, and it's those, for me, it's the wide discrepancies in players. And I use it as a barometer for my own list. And, people say, oh, geez, you're down on a player. Well, maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but maybe other players have shown more than I'd given them credit for in the past. And if you don't self-evaluate, I think that you miss trying to be as accurate as you possibly can, knowing that there's still a certain measure that can't be calculated perfectly.
So you got Pellikka and Wallander, your top 2 defensemen in this draft, both the Swedish guys. My question about defensemen specifically, you brought up something good with Zubov and talked about mistakes and actually defending. Do you think some scouts get clouded with defensemen by goals, assists, and points, and it's harder to find the guys that can actually defend, and those guys don't necessarily get in the appropriate place in a list because, gosh, he doesn't have enough goals?
Yeah, I think it happens with forwards too. Like, I don't think it just happens with defenders. And players, skaters that can jump into the attack to put up big gaudy numbers and everything. I'll give you an example. Adam Boqvist, who was, I don't know what he was, 7th or 8th pick by the Chicago Blackhawks first round, got traded over to the Columbus Blue Jackets. If you went and watched Adam play, you saw a lot of flash. You saw a lot of dash. Where Adam finds himself now is if he's not producing points, he's not helping you.
Right.
He's not helping you. So, and we all get caught up in kind of the magic of high-end skill and high-end flash and everything. But the NHL is really about, okay, if you're going to be that type of player, you better be Erik Karlsson. you better be Erik Karlsson, right? Or one of those top-end players. You better be John Carlson. And if you're not, okay, what are the other areas of your game? And I really try to define it and go, one of my dear friends in life is Les Jackson. Worked with him forever in Dallas, in Minnesota and Dallas. And he always said, like if you're not good, if this is your only calling card, you better be really, really good in that area. And then if you're not, okay, are there other areas that can allow you to play? What happens with prospects is they're not good enough in that one area to carry their game at the NHL level, and then they don't have enough in any other area, and those are the ones that don't find their way to the NHL or don't find it in the manner that they were projected to be there or in the manner you expected them to be there.
One of the other big storylines of this draft is the Matvei Michkov situation. Most draft experts have him, ranked in that next tier under Connor Bedard with the likes of Adam Fantilli and maybe Leo Carlsson as well. But obviously there's a huge risk factor in drafting him. There's a lot more than just drafting a player. So I just want to ask you, from your perspective, what's your read on this situation? Do you think someone will, roll the dice on him in the top 5 or say, or do you think that he's going to slip down just given everything around him?
So I'm not being disagreeable. I had the same mindset as you, Leah. I thought that there was risk. I don't think there's any risk with Matvei Michkov now. Wow. I think there's zero risk.
Wow.
Russian players are coming to the NHL. They're signing contracts in the NHL. So it's not a question now of when it was communist times, would you get them? You draft Pavel Bure in the 6th round, but you know how good he is. But you're not sure if you're Sergei Fedorov in the 4th round. You know that Matvei Michkov is coming over. But you also know that he's got a contract through the 25, 26 season. So you just have to wait till he's 21. He's not 41 when you're getting him. He's 21. And so this is where I've changed my thinking on this, because I felt that, like, as I thought about it, he's an elite talent. And then I said, so now there might be more value in drafting Matvei Michkov now and waiting 3 years, depending on your situation, because now you're going to get a player at 21 who's going to have an entry-level contract, and you would expect him at that age to be performing at a top level if he can realize that elite potential. So I'm looking now that there's no risk, and there might be even more value in drafting him. The draft. I'll be straightforward. He's not lasting very long in this draft. I don't know where it is, and if a team doesn't want him in a certain, and I'm talking top 5. Let me be clear here. I don't think he goes past 4, personally. I don't think he gets past 4. Now, maybe the team currently in that 4 spot, San Jose, says, you know, we're not going to take him. But now teams behind him are going, we'll trade up with you. We'll trade up with you to take that guy. You know, and when I talk about depth of the draft, teams might go, okay, we're going to get something, and we're going to get this group of players, one of these players, and we're not taking Michkov. So my own thought process on, he doesn't go past 4.
Wow.
And maybe he doesn't go past 2. Maybe he doesn't go past 3.
Wow.
I don't see any scenario where he goes, because it's not just who's picking 4 or 3. It's what's behind them that are saying, we're taking that guy. You don't think the Washington Capitals picking 8 would want to have Matvei Michkov, and they wouldn't want to move heaven and earth to move up to get him?
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's a no-brainer. So that's what I see unfolding with Matvei Michkov.
Wow. All right. Well, that's
breaking news. I like it.
I like that too. All right. We'll get into.
Can I just interject here real quick?
Yeah, of course.
See, at one point in time, I thought the Arizona Coyotes at 6. I did a mock draft and I had Michkov going 6. I said, it's nice. You know, their time frame is 3 years down the road.
That's what we were thinking too.
Nicely, right? But what I'm really saying now is he ain't going to be there at 6.
Yeah. But that does, and then we're going to get to more names later. What that does is it push some of the other players' names, and we'll get to that next. But is some of the guys that we thought wouldn't be there at 6 may now be there if you're including him for sure in your top 5.
Yeah, that's true. And on that note, I want to ask you then, who do you think realistically is going to be there for the Coyotes at 6? You know, we've seen a mix of lists of top 6, and that's the thing about the Coyotes in that 6th spot. Like the top maybe 3 or 4 for sure things, but that 6th spot for the Coyotes seems to be different on everyone's list. So realistically for you, who do you expect to be there at 6?
And I'll throw a name at you before you talk. I'm going to say a guy that we talked about for a long time here once we saw the Coyotes at 6 was Will Smith. And the people I've talked to said, no, he won't be there at 6. Do you think he's a guy that they could look at?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think so. So let's just talk about Will specifically, and then I'll get to the other part of this. Will Smith is a really high level two-way center. He reminds me so much of Mika Zibanejad of the New York Rangers. That type of a player. You know, excellent on the power play, excellent offensively, can score in multiple ways, but he's a really good penalty killer. He's a really good two-way player. He's a good playmaker. But how I separate Will Smith from he's a driver. Like Mika Zibanejad, they're drivers of play. They're drivers of play in critical areas of the game. And certainly, you know, if you put my feet to the fire, I would say, Leah, that the first 5 guys would be Bedard, Fantilli, Karlsson, Michkov, and Will Smith. And so I would say those are the 5 that wouldn't be there at 6. Now, I might pull away and say, I'm pretty confident in and when I say confident, like I feel confident in saying Bedard, Fantilli, Michkov, and Karlsson won't be there at 6. Maybe Smith will be there. In my own view, he won't be there, but he may be there. And just describing him how I did, you know, you look at the center ice that the Arizona Coyotes have. You know, Logan Cooley, their first round pick last year. You know, I really believe that a center like Will Smith and what he brings to just complements a Logan Cooley and builds out your team in a really significant fashion.
So if Will Smith's not there, who do you see going at 6 for the Coyotes?
Okay, I got a dartboard here with about 8 names. Oh, 55 minutes.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it depends, I guess. Are they going defenseman because their defenseman depth is not there, especially in the American League teams if they've lost some of their depth in the Roadrunners? Or are they looking for somebody up the middle? And that's what they've said for years, that they need to draft a center iceman. So that really where's this conversation starts.
Well, they drafted a pretty good one last year in Logan Cooley. And then they have Connor Geekie, who they drafted with their second first-round pick last year. You start to think about, big promising winger like Josh Doan, who they signed out of Arizona, right? And this is a team, Dylan Guenther, they got a lot of good young forwards. They drafted some defensemen last year, even into the second round last year, drafted Julian Lutz, a big, strong, powerful winger. And I think that was a player that's going to play in the NHL. When you look at the blue line and you look at the importance of blue lines to success in the NHL, I think they need dynamic defenders. I think they need, and that might come, one of the things I think you have to consider too, is there a trade out there? Is there a trade out there? And we're not talking about an older defender. We're talking about a younger defender that fits into a certain age group that says, okay, this is a player that's going to grow with our group, that can really help our group in time and move forward. So David Reinbacher, the Austrian defenseman, I think he's more like Adam Larsson of the Seattle Kraken. I think he's more tilted towards that style of game. I talked about Sandin Pellikka being the type of player like Zubov. I see Wilander like a McAvoy or a Rasmus Anderson in Calgary. Offense can play some head, but they play important minutes. And so I don't see a defender like that in Arizona.
Yeah.
So but maybe they don't use this. Maybe they move back. Maybe they move back and get some extra picks, or they get a player or a later pick and a prospect. I think that where you look at their prospect list, I think up front it's really deep. I think it's a deep group of prospects and good quality prospects. I think the blue line is an area that if there was a focus and all things being equal, that you look at trying to see what are your best options for drafting a defender. I said earlier, top 3 defender, top pair defender. If you can get that, and it all comes down to how teams assess, I think that would move the Coyotes, into a deeper, more quality group of prospects rounded out at all the key positions.
All right. I want to ask you about Ryan Leonard, because that's another name we've discussed here a few times. On a lot of mock drafts I've been seeing lately, that he's slotted in at 6, but on your list you have him right now actually at number 12, which happens to be another Coyotes pick. I'm curious your thoughts on Ryan Leonard. He's that bigger type player. Bill Armstrong has been very open about the fact that he likes that bigger type of player. So I'm curious if you think Ryan Leonard either would be a fit for Arizona or could even be a 6th or 12th pick for them.
I don't think there's any question. I mean, he's one of the players. He's up on the dartboard right here. You don't see it, but he's on. Ryan Leonard is a competitor, and he's a hard player. And we talk about the playoffs and we talk about success, and there's a difference between being a good team and then being able to have a team that can compete in when the times become hard, i.e. the playoffs and each successive round. You don't even have to ask yourself the question about Ryan Leonard. He's all in. He's an all-in competitor. He can play everywhere in the lineup. He can play everywhere in the game. And when somebody that skates like that competes like that thinks like that contributes like that is valuable. I'm not trying to that's why Will Smith might be there at 6, because somebody at 5 might say, I want Ryan Leonard.
Yeah.
One of the things and I saw it happen a couple of years ago, and teams were jockeying to try to move up for players, and they were looking and looking and looking, and teams are looking to go, well, maybe I'll move back and get that player. And then when they went and did their work, they realized that the player they were going to move back for was not going to be there. And I'm going to give you the example. Moritz Seider. The Detroit Red Wings and Steve Yzerman love Moritz Seider. But They started to look around. Can we get a little bit more? Can we move back by letting somebody move up? And we're not talking about, they took him sixth, but they were just looking and exploring where there might be opportunity to maximize that pick and still get Seider. They realized real quickly they weren't going to be able to move back very far and get Seider. So they took Seider at 6. So you have to be really, it's great to have these scenarios in your head and say, oh yeah, that player will be there. When you make that assessment on thinking that a player you really, really like is going to be there, it's incredible disappointment when he isn't. And you got to guard against that, because one of the things that I'm adamant about, I'll never back off on, there's lots of different opinions on players. Draft a player you like and celebrate the player you drafted. And you don't want to find yourself, darn, geez, I thought we could get him by moving back. And that may be the case with Ryan Leonard. He might not be there at 6.
Yeah, no, it's funny because that U.S. National Development Program right now, you look at all the guys, these high-skilled guys that have gone through that program. Ryan Leonard's got a little bit of grit to him, and then I think that's something that the teams will be excited by. I'm going to stay with the U.S. NDP, bring up another name.
So let me just go through this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm out there. I'm talking to different scouts. I get asked lots of questions. I've had different people from different organizations all tell me of those 4 players, Will Smith, Ryan Leonard, Oliver Moore, and Gabe Perreault, that they rank them differently. Some people like Perreault as the best player. Some people like Leonard as the best player. And when you think about, and I'll give you the comparables. I gave you Will Smith, that I said I feel he's a lot like Mika Zibanejad. I think Ryan Leonard has that hard driving style of a bigger Travis Konechny. But somebody that drives, maybe Timo Meyer, but a little bit more physical. And I think Perreault's like Jake Gensel. And I think that Oliver Moore is like Dylan Larkin. All I know is, tell me what player you don't want on your team.
Yeah, of those guys.
It's more of a fit.
That's where we talked about Gabe Perreault. And just for people that don't know him, he broke the record for most points at NDP over Austin Matthews. So what would he look like in a Coyote jersey? Is he just skill, flash, panache with Gabe Perreault?
One of my notes, and I have it right here, is don't underestimate the heavy lifting that Gabe Perreault does in a game. Yeah, you look at the numbers, they're gaudy. They're big. Yeah. He scores and he makes plays. But that line, and I said it during the year, it was the best line outside the NHL. Now, I'll share this with you. I know some people in Arizona said, what about that line in Minnesota with Cooley and Snuggerud and Nyes? And I said, okay, yeah. I'll give it that. But that line of Perreault, Will Smith, and Ryan Leonard, maybe I'll say U20 and under, best line out that I saw this year. And why are they the best line? Because they all have really top-notch individual skills, but they also understand that there's other areas of the game that they can contribute in to help each.
Oh, we just lost your audio for 1 second. Hold on. We just lost your audio, Craig. Sorry.
I don't think he's
got
us.
Hold on. Oh, there he is. You're back. You're back. Sorry, we just missed the last 10 seconds. So go ahead and just start your thought again.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah. No worries.
So Gabe Perreault, you can look at the goals, you can look at the assists, and you can say everything that he does, right? And say, oh, it's just about points. It isn't just about points. He does so many other important things in the game to help Will Smith, to help Ryan Leonard, to help his team. This is not just an offensive player. And Gabe, he needs time to physically mature. His game is really like the 4 players that I just mentioned earlier in the season, right up until February, and then you look at how you're going to manage your team and everything. Those 4 guys all killed penalties. They used to come out with 2 and then 2. Good luck. I mean, because they could score, but that tells you Dan Muse, the head coach, knows how good. He took a little bit of that penalty killing away from him, just because he knew as the season went on, you got into deeper competition, that you gave other opportunities to other players, and they did. They did a good job. But those guys were all really, really good penalty killers as well. So Gabe Perreault is a very well-rounded player.
So there's two guys that you have in your top 15 that we haven't actually talked about at all. So I just want to get your thoughts on them. The first one is Colby Barlow, and then the other one is Calum Ritchie.
So I always like to start with comparable types. So Colby Barlow, the way he plays the game is like Matt Boldy in Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
Another NTDP. Colby, like, it doesn't matter what the situation is, what the game is, where it's being played, who it's being played against. You are going to get 100% from Colby Barlow all the time. He ended up not being fully healthy at the under 18. He even sat out a game because they just wanted to, not tax him for 3 games in 4 days. But even if he's only 80% physically, you're getting 100% of that 80%. He's another player. He can score. He can grind on the boards. He can grind at the net. He can penalty kill. He can shoot the puck and score from distance and from so many different ways. But to me, the reason I compare him to Matt Boldy, he makes everybody around him better. He is a dyed-in-the-wool. I want him on my team. Every year in the draft, I have what I call a player crush. Colby Barlow was my player. just full declaration. And when I look and Matt Boldy was my player crush in that draft. So so the comparable became pretty easy for me. But Colby is a player. I always say this when you're going into important games, playoff games, whatever they may be, tournament games, and you're sitting in the locker room. And you want to look across to everybody and go, okay, I know that they can count on me, and I know I can count on them. There is nobody that's looking at Colby Barlow and not saying we can't count on him. You are counting on him all the time, and you know he's going to give you everything all the time. And Calum Ritchie, I had a little bit of a I don't know if it was a revelation. Calum, who I've watched for a few years now, really gifted, skilled, smart. And you watch a player with that type of size and that type of skill, and I think we all become guilty of it. You start to think, oh, why doesn't he assert himself? Why doesn't he do more of this and more of that? And I thought, in my own evaluation, I said, I think I'm being a little bit narrow-minded on him. So I went back and watched some games that I'd been at and some other games that I hadn't been at. And what I really noticed about, in my own view, with Calum is he's really smart. He doesn't thrive in a chaotic, kind of scattered type of game. So what he does is he plays really responsibly. He pulls back. He makes good plays, but he's not trying to always force things that don't fit to his mindset, his hockey sense, and his abilities. And I said, well, the game in the NHL is not chaos. It's not scattered. It's purposeful. And I felt that his game translates to the NHL in a real big way. The other thing that I would say too is that we look at big players differently today than we did 10, 15 years ago. Power forwards 10, 15 years ago ran over opponents. The game isn't as physical as it once was. And so maybe there was an expectation that Colby should run over, or not Colby, Calum should run over people. And I said, that's not his game. His game is smart, and I really believe that his game translates to the NHL because he is, and when he gets with other good, smart, every tournament I've seen him at with really better high-end players, he's excelled. And I went back to my notes. And the things I wrote about Alex Tuck are exactly some of the things I wrote about Calum Ritchie. Alex Tuck is a top-notch player, and I see the same path for Calum Ritchie.
So here's what I want people. We've thrown some names out. We've talked about names we haven't talked about. So the Coyotes, all season we talked about Connor Bedard. We talked about him for 82 games here. We're going to get Lass. We're going to get Bedard. It didn't work out that way. It's not Fantilli. It's not Carlson. I just want you to give some reassurance after talking some of these names with picks at 6 and 12. Right now, they may trade and they may not end up with both. But if they are to pick both at 6 and 12, will the Coyotes have good hockey players at 6 and 12 that the fans can be excited about?
Absolutely. I mean, when a generational player like Connor Bedard comes along, there's excitement everywhere. I mean, he filled buildings in the Canadian Hockey League and the Western Hockey League at the World Junior Tournament because he's a standalone prospect that doesn't come along very often. But, so we all know about him and we've been talking about him for years, and rightfully so. But, if it was only about the first overall pick or the second overall pick or the third overall pick helping your team be good, well, then if you're not picking there, you got no chance. Teams are built by having different styles of play, and you're going to get good players. This isn't an individual sport, and even basketball, which is a team sport, relies on that upper end to really drive your team. Hockey isn't like that, and the quality of player that the Arizona Coyotes can look at 6 and 12, and even into the second round is really, really positive. And you might not be sitting here and going, oh, he captures the imagination of the fan right off the bat, but the quality will eventually, cream rises to the top. And that's what will end up happening, with these players. There's no question in my mind that when you look at the prospects available and the prospects in the Arizona Coyotes organization, that they're building a team that's going to be a really good team. They have the potential to be a really, really good team. I talk about the defenders where they might have to build out their, not me, I really believe that's an area they got to look at. But 6 and 12, there's every reason to trust it 100% that these are players that are not only going to be good, but maybe not immediately, but will excite the fans of it. Keep in mind, that fans over years have underestimated some really, really good players. The Colorado Avalanche were the worst team in the 2016-2017 draft. And, they lost. They fell to 4. They fell to 4. Oh boy, what a tragic turn of events. And they had to take that Cale Makar kid from Brooks Bandits.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's so true. Before we let you go, which thank you again so much for your time, we just have a couple of questions about the current Coyotes prospect pool. You were just at the Memorial Cup in Kamloops, and 2 Coyotes prospects were in that tournament, Dylan Guenther and Jeremy Langlois. So just from your perspective being there, what did you see from those 2 guys?
Well, I mean, Dylan's an elite player. Dylan didn't score at the tournament, but and it's hard when you get into a big tournament like that, and your team is looking to you to score, and you yourself are expecting to score, and that's Dylan's expectations of himself, and he's done that. It's easy for me to say he had so many quality opportunities. His process was spot on. One of the things that happens, the goaltender is trying to stop you. I talked to Dylan one day. They were playing against Peterborough, and he came across. He made just a great play with his hands, got the shot off, and he says, "I knew where I was shooting," and I said, and I knew where I wanted to hit. And he goes, and I didn't see where it went. I said it went right off the top of his shoulder. He got over there, and I said, if he sags that shoulder, it's right under the bar. But he kind of kept his shoulder, and I said, that's how close it was. And he goes, but the goaltender's trying. I mean, he hit posts. He got stymied by goaltenders at the tournament, but his game was really, really strong. There's obviously going to be disappointment when you lose and you don't find your way onto the score sheet. You go, oh, if I would have done this. That's what top players do, and that's what Dylan is. His game was, and not just getting chances, but playmaking and a lot of different parts of the game that were really strong. The Arizona Coyotes have a terrific player in Dylan Guenther. Don't look at the scoring sheet, the stats sheet, as any type of barometer. He played really, really well there. Obviously, when you win a Memorial Cup and you're on a team that is so good as the Quebec Remparts, Langlois was a really important part of that. Patrick Waugh did such a phenomenal job coaching that team. But when you have players that not only know what their game is, but also understand the game so well, you're going to be able to have a team game that's sound. And that's where the Quebec Remparts were. The Seattle Thunderbirds are an excellent, excellent team. Jeremy Langlois and the rest of the the rest of the defensemen for the Quebec Remparts, in 6 periods, they couldn't dent them. They couldn't dent them. Why? Because those defensemen were so good. They were composed. They were smart. They knew what their options were. They knew what their options weren't. You know, you probably have heard Jeremy is going to play in Rouen next year. He was part of the trade. They acquired him in Quebec. They acquired Justin Robidas in Quebec, and now going back is the goaltender William Rousseau, and Langlois will play in Rouen-Noranda next year, which is going to be really good for him because Rouen is going to be a really good team. But all the things that Jeremy does, in terms of his skating, that needs to improve a little bit, but his thinking, his competitiveness, his on-ice ability to just keep things settled and composed, really, really impressive. And certainly, you know, it's going to take him a little bit longer than last year's, but there's certainly a really good prospect there. One other player that I want to mention that I think is going to be a rock on the Arizona Coyotes blue line in the years to come, and that might be sooner rather than later, and that's Maximilian Zuber. He played for Germany at the World Championships. He was with Germany at the World Junior last year in Edmonton in the August event. He's a good player. He's a really, really good player. That is somebody in my view. And so you're going to get these players from different parts of the draft. And I think Jeremy has NHL potential all the way. I don't think there's any question that he has that potential. But, you know, sometimes it takes players a little bit longer, but doesn't take away their potential. And you asked me earlier about should they be excited about 6 and 12? Be excited about some of the prospects that might not be household names that I think have real potential. Langlois for certain, and certainly Zuber, who I think is going to be there sooner rather than later.
Wow. He's one of our favorite names to say.
Yeah, we like to say it. Yeah. but it's, you know what? And I think this is why we appreciate having people like you on our show, Craig, because we can sit here and talk about it all the time in these names. Oh, and there's hope, and we're going to have a chance, and the team is building. But when you get people from outside of our bubble saying, yeah, you know, this guy can play, or you know, Logan Cooley, he's going to be a good player, or Maximilian Zuber, it is great to hear that it's not just us beating that drum, that there is truly hope here with this Coyote franchise.
I don't think there's any question. And so hope, people start with hope. And when you're drafting players and you're watching them progress, you'll hope that they can realize the potential that you projected for them. Well, that starts to turn into belief as you see it, right? And ultimately what fans want and what people following the team want is a belief that you can have success. I don't think there's any question that the Arizona Coyotes are moving from hopeful to belief. And I think you'll start to see, I mean, even this year, I mean, they were a hard out. I mean, you think about all the games that they had to play in the first half of the year on the road, and they were competitive. They were a hard team to play against. Yeah, they ran out of some steam later on in the year, but their first 60 games, that was a team that, like, no opponent that came in playing against the Arizona Coyotes left the game going, oh, that was easy. It was hard. And as you get better players and more skilled players in there, it's only going to get better.
Well, Craig, we can't thank you enough for your time. This has been amazing insight, and hopefully we'll see you in Nashville at the draft. We'll be there. So.
Yeah, if you want to see me, though, you might have to go to Tootsie's, because I think that's probably where I'll be.
Okay, I am going to be in Nashville. And so Darren Drager and myself are going to be down there. And we've decided that we are going to cover the draft from the rooftop of Tootsie's.
Perfect.
I'll be right down the bar. You can see it's a perfect backdrop. You can see Bridgestone right behind you. I love it. I'm all in. Yeah, I hope we get to see you there, Craig. Thank you so much again for your time. We really appreciate it.
You will see me there. The only reason you won't see me there is if you don't want to see me.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Well, so much to unpack there.
There's hope.
There's hope. That's the biggest takeaway for me.
There's hope.
So we'll dive into a lot of what Craig said in a second. But before we do, the NBA Finals continue on tonight. And if you want to win yourself some money on that game, be sure to log into BetMGM today because it is Wednesday. And any Wednesday and Saturday that you log
bonus bet.
I literally got the notification this morning. I've done it. every Wednesday and Saturday
I
since
sometimes
this
forget
started.
Wednesday. Saturdays I remember. Wednesday sometimes
Yeah, well,
forget.
after the
and
show.
there's no game tonight. I thought there was a game tonight.
There's no hockey. But you can also, you have 72 hours to use the bonus bet, so you could use it on hockey tomorrow. Yep. So if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, make sure you use the bonus code PHNX. There's a few different offers depending on where you live, but for our Arizona audience, you'll get up to $100 in bonus bets on your first wager with BetMGM. Again, make sure you use the bonus code PHNX. Check out the show notes for full details. And now you can listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
$1+ to wager. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in Washington, D.C., Mississippi, Nevada, New York, and Ontario. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, Arizona. 1-800-522-4700, Kansas, Nevada. 1-800-327-5050, Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF, Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help, Michigan.
And if you win yourself some money on BetMGM, keep in mind, Father's Day is 2 weeks away. And if you're thinking, I don't know what the heck to get my dad,
get him one of these.
Saturday Neon. This is a really cool, unique
Literally fire
thing. There are neon signs for collegiate sports, and they're made with high quality materials, and they have a 2-year warranty. So all of those things, great. They're great for offices, man caves, dorm rooms, a great graduation gift, basements, bars, and like I said, great gift for Father's Day. We have a U of A one hanging in our office. It looks phenomenal.
Bear down.
So go to SaturdayNeon.com, use code PHNX for 10% off your first order today. Free shipping for orders over $200. Check out Saturday Neon. All right, PD, lots to unpack there. Where do you want to start?
I think the most encouraging thing for me is we've talked so much about Fantilli, Carlson, Michkov, and Connor Bedard, but to know that there are really, really good players that are going to be there at 6 and really, really good players that are going to be there at 12. And not just good. He is saying, and rewind, in those 2 picks, 6 and 12, they're going to be top 6 forwards and top 3 defensemen on both picks. That's how you build a team. Yeah. So that's incredibly encouraging because the Coyotes are the only team that has 2 picks in the top 12.
Yeah. So I also think it was really interesting because he said, like, if you held my feet to the fire, I think Will Smith's not there. But who knows what happens in that top 5? Like, Will Smith could still end up at 6. And then if it's not Will Smith, it could be someone like Ryan Leonard. I feel like Smith and Leonard, once we realized the Coyotes weren't in that top 3, that those were the guys in that range. And if one's not there, the other will be. That's the thing about picking at 6. But either way, like you said, closing his eyes, throwing a dart, like whoever the Coyotes do get at that spot will be good. I think the other really interesting thing Craig said was his read on the Michkov situation was different than what we've heard.
What we've been hearing
from others, and that he's 100% confident he's gone.
Top 4.
He's
top 4.
Going in the top 4.
He will not be there. We've speculated that potentially he'll be there at 6 for the Coyotes.
Yeah.
According to Craig Button, the answer is no.
Yeah. But if that does happen, then it changes the whole layout.
Yeah, but it pushes everybody else down.
Exactly.
And that's why guys like Will Smith, or he brought up names like, we didn't talk about Dvorsky. Dvorsky is a guy that his name's come up a lot. Colby Barlow is a guy we hadn't heard of at all until today, but now that's another name to throw on the list. Gabe Perreault set the NDP record for points, and he could be there at both 6 and or 12.
Yeah, 12.
So with Leonard, Perreault, all of those NDP kids, there's a lot of good hockey players in this top 12. So we're going to continue to throw up these names of guys that, hey, if they get this guy at 6 or they get this guy at 12, they're just building out that core roster. And to his point too, he also said, and this is going along with Geeky and Logan Cooley and all of the Dylan Gunther. So it was exciting to hear that there are going to be good players at 6. And now we as a PHNX staff, we can start looking deeper into some of the names that he brought up today so that by the time we get to Nashville, they're household names to us.
Yes. Sean, can we pull up Craig's top 10 list? And the thing that I found really interesting about his list specifically is it wasn't the same as everybody else's. A lot of the draft experts who we've talked to on the show, Chris Peters, Corey Pronman, we're going to talk to Bob McKenzie the week before the draft as well. But Craig's list, like, he wasn't afraid to do something different. And that one for me was Axel Sandin-Pellikka. And the fact that Craig said he's watched him 20 times this year, this is why we talk to these guys. Because we're not out there. We're not at rinks in Quebec and Ontario. And Europe, even watching these guys play. So we keep hearing David Reinbacher. Well, Craig has David Reinbacher at 24.
Right.
He has Sandin Pellikka up higher. He has Wielander at number 8 on his list. Those are the defensemen that he has above everybody else. So that, again, just another thing that's different about Craig's list. And that's why I think it's great for us on our show that we get to talk to different guys with different point of views. Obviously, it'll come down to the Coyotes and their scouts. But I just thought his list was more interesting than others.
And the other thing he recognized too is, look at the cupboards for the Coyotes. They need defensemen.
Yeah.
And so those are names that we didn't have in our vocabulary this morning. We do now. Pellikka, Wielander. I think that those guys, they're guys that I could see the Coyotes taking a defenseman at 12. I don't see them taking a defenseman at 6 right now.
Yeah.
I think that
it's too forward heavy.
It's forward heavy on this draft. So I think their second pick in the top 10 or at number 12 is more likely to be a defenseman then. But it's good to hear that there are good defensemen out there.
Yeah, very true. And also his read on Zuber, like we talk about Zuber because we love to say his name, Zuba. But hearing and Craig brought it up, we didn't even ask about him.
Yes.
To know that he could be in the NHL sooner rather than later.
Zuba rather than later, someone said.
Yeah, that was a great comment. Brady, or was it Brady?
No,
it was Tim. Sorry.
Tim.
Yeah, Zuba rather than later.
rather than later.
That's good. If he comes in and is amazing, we might have to make that a shirt.
Yeah, I think so. We'll credit Tim for that shirt. But again, it goes to, it's not just the draft; it's your prospects that are out there that are there. And we didn't even talk about Maverick Lamoureux, and he was a first round pick from last year. You talk about his size at the back end. Zuber at the back end, and then they pick up another defenseman in this draft, whether it's in that or they got a second round pick or they got 4 thirds. I mean, I do believe they're going to take defensemen in those 3 rounds, but it's great to hear that there are good prospects, and we're going to continue to throw out those names over the next 3 weeks so that by the time we all get to Nashville, everybody knows who they are.
Yeah, and we want it to be that when the name is called, not a single Coyotes fan goes, who? Exactly. I feel like we're covering a lot of ground here. And like I mentioned, Bob McKenzie, the Bob father himself, will join our show the week before the draft. Bobby Margarita. We had him on last year.
Yeah, we drank during that show last year.
We did because we were at 4 Peaks.
Buddy, I think we should, I'm in. If we're not at 4 Peaks, we need to do.
We should have had Sean.
Is he going to be in Nashville?
Maybe.
Got to have him bring some margaritas.
We should have had Sean, who was just in Buffalo, drive across the border and retrieve some Bobby Margarita.
Could have, too. I was also, you didn't tell me until I was there.
That the combine was there.
I would have gone. I would have got some content.
Yes.
Oh, man. Well, we actually, speaking of the combine, we did have Brendan Perlini on the show yesterday.
Great show.
Unbelievable. First of all, 2 unbelievable interviews back to back. Brendan Perlini was amazing. Really took us inside the combine from a player's point of view. But one of the things that Brendan Perlini talked about was the step up from junior to the NHL was he didn't know how to set up internet and pay his bills or what,
he actually said he didn't know how to furnish an apartment.
And it's just too bad because I could have been there to help him.
How would you?
I would have told him to go to More Furniture. And that's what I would tell to any of these guys who are junior players coming up to the NHL.
They'll take care of it. White glove delivery.
Yeah. All you have to do is pick out what you want. You don't even have to build it. You can go to practice, come home. It's there. Done. It's set up. I actually have 2 pieces of furniture coming on Saturday.
Really?
White glove delivery. I'm so relieved because I'm not a builder. I've said this again and again. And I keep saying I need 2 more things. The 2 more things are finally coming.
Got it.
And More Furniture was there for me. So check out More Furniture. You can save I can't read. Save big on the best furniture in the Valley when you head to morefurniture.com. That's morfurniture.com. And also, I've said it again and again for those prospects coming to Arizona, especially in July for development camp.
Yes.
You got to bring your sunglasses.
Got to protect your eyes.
Make sure you grab yourself some Shady Rays. Also a great Father's Day gift. I'm here to remind you, Father's Day is in 2 weeks and it's time to get some gifts.
You hear that, Jackson?
Shady Rays. Amazing sunglasses. We each have a pair. I'm excited to get some more. They have a guarantee. If you don't love them, you can exchange them or return them for free within 30 days. But I promise you'll love them because
but you're going to help me after the show, or I need to order another pair. You're going to help me after the show.
I will. I promise I will. Yeah. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. You can go to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. All right, Petey, before we wrap up,
do you want to talk about? I want to talk about the big trade in Philly. Provorov that's sending Cal Peterson to Philadelphia, and
Carter
now they have
Hart.
2 goalies. Is Carter Hart on the move?
Carter Hart's on the
And
block.
former Coyote Danny Brière's first ever trade as a GM.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, how about that?
Very
and
true.
is that signs of things to come in the NHL? Is it just the beginning that we're going to start seeing guys move around before the draft?
Well, it's interesting that we're seeing trades this early,
This
first
early,
of all.
yeah.
And the thing I want to say about Philly specifically is I think it's interesting that now they're kind of blowing it up when they could have blown it up
Yeah,
before and
before.
tried to get in on Bedard.
Yeah.
Like,
Why didn't
I
they?
question that. Obviously, there was a complete change of leadership, and
Yep.
like Briere is now in this position, and he has the reins, and it's his call. But I think it's interesting. Obviously, and somebody on Twitter asked us yesterday, like, is there a top guy in the 2024 draft? It's crazy to already talk about that, but Macklin Celebrini, we've already talked about him. I think there's a couple more guys in that top mix. Does Philadelphia now become the Chicagos, the Columbus, the Anaheim of this past year? It seems like that's the direction they're going in terms of kind of trying to blow it up, trading Carter Hart away. But what do you think about the Provorov trade and Columbus?
See, I'm not sure what Columbus is doing.
They're just trying to take in problematic people into their organization.
And then again, the Babcock thing's happening. Like everybody's like, well, if they took too much pressure on the internet, and maybe they won't hire him. He's there. Like Babcock's going to be announced as the new head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I just don't understand how he's going to make all of these people happy. I think this is going to be a mess in Columbus. I like Provorov. I think he's a good defenseman. I think he gets the puck up the ice, and I think he attacks the net well. But you've got a bunch of personalities there, people that want to be happy and try to be made happy, and I don't know how it's going to work in Columbus. So I get that they're trying to make big moves and bringing Provorov in to go with Johnny Hockey. You got Patrick Laine. You need to build that roster, and you need to try to win now. That team's got to make the playoffs. I just don't know who the hell they're going to bump out of the top 8 in the East. I just don't see anybody that's falling that far right now. And you also look at Buffalo and Detroit moving their way up, and Ottawa.
Yeah.
So where the hell is Columbus going to fit in? So we'll see. I mean, it's bold moves bringing in Cal Peterson and Carter Hart on the move. Look at Philly making big moves, and they're going one way, and Columbus is trying to go the other. We'll see. But I guess what this sets up for Coyote fans is the trade market and business is open. And that was a 3-way trade to get that deal done. Coyotes like to get in on the 3-ways. Let that just settle in a little bit.
All right. Well, and it also brings up, and another thing that Craig had mentioned was, maybe the Coyotes trade that 12th pick. Maybe they package it. Yeah. I'm sure we'll see. I mean, the Coyotes have 1 billion draft picks over the next two or 3 seasons. They're probably not going to execute on all those picks. What moves can they make? Zach Kassian, shout out Alltex, got traded to the Coyotes at the draft. That was part of the move. In that later round, or in the first round, to move to pick Lamoureux. The trade market's going to be really interesting. It's getting started a little early, and the draft. I mean, the draft was the draft, but the draft is also one of the craziest trade times, 2 days of the season as well. And I'm curious what Bill Armstrong might have up his sleeve. He did tell us on his show that sometimes the phone calls on the draft floor are mind games and fake. So don't get too caught up in seeing people on the phone. But it's going to be a really interesting draft this year.
Yeah, and we'll be there
for a lot of reasons.
And we'll be there.
We will be there. And you can still come with us to Nashville, by the way. So giddy up and get those tickets. Go phnx.com/events. But if you're looking to, again, this is the theme of the episode, and I swear I'm not trying to be annoying with this. Father's Day is in 2 weeks.
Father's Day.
Here's another gift idea. I'm just Santa Claus giving out gift ideas.
They're all over our studio, by the way.
They're all over our set.
Yes.
Foco. All right. Go to foco.com right now. You will find something for, this is, again, graduation gifts, birthday gifts, Father's Day gift, or just treat yourself. They have amazing Arizona sports gear. We have awesome bobbleheads on our set. They have licensed apparel as well. So just go on their website, scroll around. You can get the best gear by visiting foco.com. That's FOCO.com, and using code PHNX. And for all non-presale items, use code PHNX for 10% off. Love that we're linking up with Craig Button at Tootsie's on the roof.
Yes.
And at the bar.
But you know what? They don't have it, Tootsie's.
They don't have 4 peaks. And that would be a -1.
God, can you imagine a wow on the roof at Tootsie's
No,
in the sunshine
I simply
overlooking
can't.
Bridgestone.
I simply cannot.
You have no idea what you're in for.
I'm
here.
excited. You know what I'm really and I know we talked about this I think yesterday, but I need to get back on the peach train. Like that's a perfect
I
summer
might stop
beer.
on the way home because you know what we talked about. My house is getting painted right now.
Yeah.
So I might sit outside.
You don't want to be in those fumes.
No, I'll sit outside with a peach
Love
and
it.
watch those guys work. What would make them happier than me sitting there drinking beer while they
Only
work?
if you offered them a beer while they work.
Oh, well,
But
no,
maybe
that's
not
the
while they're
latter.
painting.
That's probably not good.
Yeah. But anyway, check out Four Peaks wherever you buy your beer. Target, Walmart, the grocery store, the gas station. They have Four Peaks. You can also get Four Peaks at the A Street Pub because not only do they have all of their beers
Love the 8th Street Pub.
on tap.
Love it.
The food, phenomenal.
Yes.
Phenomenal. So, and the vibes.
The
Great vibes.
And
Great
it's got
place.
so many different vibes inside one building. You
Yeah.
got the outside, you got that little front bar. It's great.
Yeah. And
Many
great
vibes,
place to
all in
watch the NBA Finals tonight or the NHL Finals
Yes.
tomorrow. So check out the A Street Pub. Check out at Four Peaks Brew or at Four Peaks Pub to keep up with the latest at Arizona's hometown brewery. You got to be 21 or older to drink Four Peaks, and please drink responsibly. All right. Anything else?
Let's get ready for more hockey tomorrow. I don't know, Florida. Let's get off the mat and let's get at it.
Yeah,
because we could be done
preview
with
that
hockey in a
game.
hurry.
Yeah,
But
we'll
talk about
preview
it.
that one tomorrow.
Talk about it tomorrow.
But wow, what a
And welcome back to DP in the studio
Yes.
after his quick trip to the upper Northeast, and then we got to go to Buffalo.
Yep, for a
and
couple
see
days.
See
The Buffalo Bandits.
the Buffalo Bandits win. Was there a big parade for the Buffalo Bandits?
I don't know, but I would just like to point out that John Tavares, the Toronto Maple Leafs player, has no championships. John Tavares, his cousin and Buffalo Bandits legend / head coach now, has 5 championships.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just saying.
John
John
Tavares, I actually knew
Wow.
about him in the lacrosse, like the other
Wow.
John Tavares.
The other John Tavares.
Legend.
As they say in Buffalo, Johnny who? And then everyone yells Tavares.
Well, welcome back. We missed you.
Yes. Another great interview, Craig Button.
It's great.
Thank you again.
Great.
Amazing insights.
I just feel
I feel
a
so
sense of calm.
I feel hope.
Hope.
And that's the first time I felt hope with this organization. And
And we're not talking about the other thing today.
No,
We're
we're
talking
not.
about this
What
thing.
thing?
Draft.
I don't know.
That's it.
Yeah.
Prospects. Hope.
3 weeks from today.
Belief.
Can you
He said
believe
hope turns into belief.
it? I love that. And I love that he said we're moving into the belief stage.
We're moving
we
into
just
belief.
need that with the other thing now.
There we go.
But that's okay. 3 weeks from today, the draft. Can't wait. Everybody in our chat, thank you so much for being here. Be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the PHNX Sports YouTube channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss when we go live. If you're not a diehard, become one today. You get 20% off merchandise and events. You also get access to our Discord, which Coyotes
By the way,
Discord is... It was all over the place this morning.
I was in there this morning in the Discord, and we already know, like, I'm a hockey guy.
Yeah.
It went so far off the map. Like
It's just a great community, though.
wow, there's some very smart people in there.
There are.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot
Otto
of other...
von Bismarck. Like that. What? Yeah, if you want to know how that relates to hockey,
Join
you
the
need to
Discord.
be a diehard and join the Discord of like-minded folks. Well, maybe not all like-minded.
Well, and also when you become a diehard, you get a Dobson Ranch card, you get $50 voucher to Mountain Mike's.
20% off all events.
Like, it's just crazy what you
20%
get.
off merch.
Oh, yeah, and we're both rocking the merch today.
I love the merch.
I love our merch so much.
I do too.
So check it out,
Do you think that'd be a cool
phnxlocker.com.
tattoo?
I think it would be
The
amazing.
flag? Yeah. Not me, but somebody.
Somebody. Yeah,
Yeah.
not me either, but somebody. Again, thanks so much for being here. We'll be back tomorrow live at 11 a.m. I think he texted me today. He was in traffic in Italy.
Good.
So I don't know. He's chilling. He's thriving.
You still got a week and a half left.
Yeah, he's still gone all of next week. So I think we've been doing well at the helm of this. Petey.
Yeah, we're still on track.
Yep. Well, you can follow Craig's European adventures at Craig S. Morgan. You can follow PD watching his house get painted at
Yes.
S. Peters Hockey. You can follow me at Leah Merrill, Sean at Sean_DePause. Follow the show at PHNX_Coyotes. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.